Let's dive into the world of permissions in Kali Linux terminal window. In Linux, permissions are associated with files and directories. They determine who can read, write, or execute them. There are three types of permissions: read, write, and execute. These permissions apply to three categories of users: owner, group, and others. Let's take an example from the terminal window. In this picture, we can see that the ls command is showing us a file called file1.txt and a directory called my folder. Now let's break down the permission string of both the file and the folder. The first character represents the file type. The hyphen means it's a regular file, while D would indicate a directory. The next three characters are the owner, which is root permissions. For the file, it's read, write, and for the folder, it's read, write, and execute. The following three characters are the group, name, root permissions. And as you can see, it's different between the file and the folder. The last three characters are the permissions for others in the system. Now, to change the permission of a file or a folder, we use the chmod command. We will see an example later in the lesson, but for now, memorize this command because we will reuse it. Before I jump into the demo, I need to remind you about an important concept in permissions, and it's called sudo. In Kali, we have the root master user, and it has full power in the system. Now, this is my favorite user, and I always use it during the penetration test. But you have to be careful while using this powerful user. Now, let's say you have multiple users in Kali, and if they are part of the sudo group, they can prepend the sudo keyword before a command in order to execute it with root privileges. All right, it's time to see some examples of how to change permissions in Kali Linux. To view the permissions of a file or directory, we use the ls-l command. This directory has two files and one folder. To modify permissions, we can use the chmod command for this purpose. Let's say you want to give the same group write permissions on the files 1.txt and file 2.txt. We can do this using either symbolic or numeric methods. Let's start with a symbolic method first. We start by writing chmod, then G for groups, and +W to give the right permission, followed by the file name. Now, for the numeric method, it's a little bit different. We have to use numbers in this case. The equivalent number for this operation is 664. To apply it for the file 2.txt file, we write chmod 664 followed by the file name. Let's dive a bit deeper into the numeric method for permissions in Kali. As we discussed earlier, there are three types of permissions: read, write, and execute. Now, instead of using the symbolic method with R, W, and X, we can represent these permissions with numbers. And we use number 4 for read, 2 for write, and 1 for execute. Each category, owner, group, and others will have a numeric value that results from adding the values of the permissions granted. For example, if the owner has read and write permissions, their numeric value would be 4 for read plus 2 for write, which is equal to 6. Now, a full numeric representation of permissions consists of 3 digits representing owner, group, and others, respectively. So, for the numeric number 664, the owner has read and write permissions. And that's why we have the number 6. Now, the people in the same group have read and write permissions as well. And others have read permissions only. So it is number 4. And that's why we use the number 664 in the chmod command to apply for the new permissions. Let's go back to the terminal window and check the permissions for the files that we changed earlier. The group now has write permissions as expected for both files. And there you have it, folks. That's a quick rundown of permissions in Kali Linux. Remember, understanding and managing permissions is a crucial skill for any penetration tester. Good luck and happy hacking.